Welcome into the Commanders Report. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. Today we have a lot to talk about on the show. First up, the latest Commanders injury updates as we get ready for the Madrid game on Sunday. Then Kliff Kingsbury, the Commanders offensive coordinator, has been linked to the New York Giants head coaching vacancy. Tell you why I think that is a possibility here later in today's show, and then we'll finish up with a former Commander that just hit the free agency market that I think the Commanders should consider bringing back. But before we get into the content today, make sure you guys click that subscribe button. We are currently in the middle of a new subscriber battle with our Dolphins channel here at Chat Sports, Dolphins Today, and we are just 2 new subscribers behind them from taking the lead. So if I win this sub battle this week, guys, Dolphins host Nick Roloff owes me a steak dinner. Now, if I lose and we lose this week, I owe him a steak dinner. So help me out here, guys. If you're a new viewer, you haven't clicked that subscribe button yet, and you love the Washington Commanders, you guys want daily and free coverage on this football team, whether it's during the season or during the offseason, make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already, and help us get to 50,000 subscribers by the end of the week. All right, so now let's get into the injury updates from Madrid. Terry McLaurin did make the trip to Madrid this week, and he is returning to practice. He is still working through that quad injury, and there is some hope that he can return to game action after the bye week next week. Then Will Harris, who's been dealing with a leg fracture, returned to practice this week as well, which is really good news to see him potentially get back. Hopefully that means Quan Martin can see the field a little bit less than Noah Brown, who's been on IR for a while now, hasn't played in the game since week 2. Return to practice. We'll see when he can get back here. Drake Jackson, who they brought in free agency a couple weeks back, immediately put him on IR. Now his 21-day practice window has been opened, and then Ben Sinnott has been the new addition to the practice report this week. He is dealing with an ankle injury and was limited in practice on Thursday. You guys can take a look at the full injury report for the Washington Commanders here on Thursday as they get ready for Sunday's matchup in Madrid. You guys can see a number of players, including Quan Martin, Frankie Louvu, are also being limited early on in the week here. We'll keep you guys updated on their statuses as the week goes on right here on the Commanders Report. So coming up here on the show, could Kliff Kingsbury be the next New York Giants head coach? Is he going to be staying within the division just like we did with Dan Quinn, bringing him over from the Cowboys? Could the Giants do the same thing to us here? I'm going to discuss that here in just one moment. But first, let's have a word from our sponsor today at Prize Picks. And the hard-hitting football action this season just getting started, and it is even better with our friends at Prize Picks. The weather might be changing outside, but the feeling of being right never gets old. So keep the season rolling on with Prize Picks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. Prize Picks is simple to play. Just pick more than or less than on at least 2 player stat projections, and if you get your picks right, you could cash in. On Prize Picks, how you play is up to you. If you want flexibility, choose the Flex Play, where you can get paid even if one of your picks misses. And if you want the biggest payouts and you really know ball, go for the Power Play. No matter what you play, though, Prize Picks is a great way to put your takes to the test. Join millions of users and sign up for America's #1 fantasy sports app with Prize Picks today. You guys can check out my Prize Picks lineup for this weekend's matchup in Madrid. I'm going to take the more on Devon Achane, rushing yards, the more on Jalen Waddle, receiving yards, and the more on passing yards for Marcus Mariota. If you guys want to download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS, you guys get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup with our friends at Prize Picks today. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. So could Kliff Kingsbury be on his way to the Big Apple? Multiple people and multiple outlets now are linking Kliff Kingsbury to the New York Giants head coaching vacancy after the Giants parted ways with Brian Daboll earlier this week. Now, why Kliff could be a fit, all right, and why people are making this connection is because, A, Kliff runs an air raid-inspired offense here in Washington with lots of pistol and shotgun and a lot of classic air raid concepts. Jackson Dart famously played in Lane Kiffin's air raid-style offense at Ole Miss. So people are making that connection where you've seen Kliff Kingsbury work with guys like Kyler Murray and Jaden Daniels, guys that have been very proficient air raid quarterbacks, and they have been able to translate their success under Kliff Kingsbury in the National Football League. The thinking goes that Jackson Dart could be the next success for Kliff Kingsbury there. And then also, Kliff has lots of experience coaching in the NFC East against these defenses, and of course, he has some inside knowledge on the inner workings of the Washington Commanders as well, which would provide the New York Giants a competitive advantage. And, despite Washington being 3-7 to start this season, after this week they might be 3-8, Kliff is getting head coaching buzz around these teams that are looking for, head coaching jobs. And, you got teams like Tennessee and New York that already have openings for next year, but there's going to be a lot more that open up by Black Monday here. So it's going to be interesting to see how much buzz Kliff gets. He had some interviews last year, but nothing really struck his fancy. Now, I do think that Kliff will wait for the right opportunity. He will not go somewhere unless he feels like it is a really good opportunity for him to advance his coaching career, because he's got it pretty good in Washington right now, right? He has full control over offensive play calling here. Dan Quinn's a defensive-minded head coach, and he gets to work with one of the best young quarterbacks in the National Football League in Jaden Daniels. So it's going to have to be pretty enticing for Kliff to leave D.C. here, in my opinion. But if he does leave, I think Washington's next offensive coordinator could be on the other sideline this Sunday in Madrid. And of course, I'm talking about Miami Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel, who could be fired by the Miami Dolphins by the end of this season. In his press conference this week, he had some very good things to say about Commanders head coach Dan Quinn, saying, "Dan Quinn holds a special place in my heart in my career. He was there, ground zero, when I became sober, supported me, believed in me, and gave me the opportunity to continue what I want to do. For that, I will forever be indebted to him. I think it speaks to the type of man he is and the type of leader he is." So listen, man, obviously, McDaniel has that connection to Dan Quinn. But I'd be thrilled to have him as our next offensive coordinator. Obviously, my number one option is to just keep Kliff Kingsbury. I think he's done a pretty darn good job here in Washington. But if he, takes a head coaching job elsewhere, I don't think you can think of a better offensive coordinator candidate to be a long-term guy here in Washington than Mike McDaniel. I mean, he's gotten the most out of Tua Tagovailoa. I mean, he's been, among the league leaders in EPA per pass attempt, excluding this year, during the time that McDaniel's been his head coach. And, Tua looked like a straight-up bust during the Brian Flores era. McDaniel comes in, and they have one of the most high-flying, innovative offenses in the National Football League. Obviously, he's got that connection to Dan Quinn, working with him at multiple different spots. And if he got offered this job here, not only does he have full control of the offense, so it's not like he goes back to San Francisco and he's under Kyle Shanahan's thumb anymore. It would be his offense, and he gets to play for a coach in Dan Quinn that he really respects, and I'm sure that he would love to work for him again. So I think that this would be a perfect fit for the Washington Commanders. This could be the Commanders' version on the offensive side of the ball to what Steve Spagnuolo has been for the Kansas City Chiefs. Somebody that's a former head coach, not likely to get poached for another head coaching position, because I think the narrative out there on McDaniel is kind of out there that he's not the best leader of men. He's not a head coach. He's not a locker room leader, but he can definitely scheme the hell out of an offensive game plan. And I would love for him to be the next OC of the Commanders if Kliff Kingsbury leaves this offseason. So what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comment section. Would you like Mike McDaniel to be Washington's next OC? Simply give me a yes or a no down there in the comment section. For me, the answer is a clear yes. That is, if Kliff Kingsbury is leaving us. But now I want to finish up today's show with a former Commander that just hit the free agency market that I think the Commanders should think about bringing back, and that is Darrick Forrest. Now, you guys remember Darrick Forrest, all right? He's a very recent starter for this Commanders defense, and he had a really good season back in 2022. One of my favorite, draft steals type of players. One of my favorite draft crushes back in the day out of Cincinnati, but he's still only 26 years old, guys. Coming out, he ran a really good 4.41 40-yard dash time for a safety. He's got a lot of range and a lot of instincts, and he really showed a lot of promise in his early years here in Washington. Now, he dealt with some injury issues his final 2 years in Washington, and they end up cutting him, and he ends up going and bouncing around the league to a couple different spots. Now the Pittsburgh Steelers have released him from their practice squad, and now he's a free agent. And I just have really fond memories going back to 2022 of a very young Darrick Forrest at that point having 4 interceptions as this team's starting free safety. He had forced 2 fumbles. He had 9 PBUs. He was among the league leaders in that category. He was just all over the place. He's a hard hitter. He's got range. He's got ball skills. He's got really the whole package, or at least he did during that 2022 season. And let's face it, guys, Quan Martin, who we were all expecting to take that next step in his 3rd year here in the National Football League, has been a complete disaster. He's been one of the worst tackling safeties in the league. He's also been atrocious in coverage on the back end. And, you got somebody in Derek Forrest who was actually briefly a part of this Dan Quinn regime. I'm sure that, he still remembers some of the verbiage and all the different stuff that they implemented here in Washington last year when Forrest was still here. And, in terms of, a guy that's only 26 years old, he could still be a long-term potential option at safety for this football team. I would love to see this team give Derek Forrest another chance, especially because this season is over and you really have nothing left to lose. Bringing a guy that's still only 26, has good range, good ball skills. He's got experience playing in the defense. It just makes a lot of sense to me to bring back a guy like Derek Forrest. So make the call for me down there in the comments section. Would you bring back Derek Forrest and put him on the Commanders roster at this point in the season and replace Quan Martin as this team's free safety? Type S for sign or type P for pass. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. And that'll be it for today's edition of Commanders News and Rumors. We'll have more Commanders coverage coming your way this weekend. Of course, we'll have the final injury report come out and any other big news items that come out. We'll make sure to get you guys a video. And, of course, we'll be live Sunday morning for the Madrid game starting at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. Do not be late. Wake up with us here on the Commanders Report on Sunday. And until next time, guys, hail to the Commanders.